We're beginning. Welcome to our introduction to the Bachelors of International Economics and Management. It's a pleasure to have you here today. I'm Charles Williams. I'm the director of our 3-year Bachelors in International Economics and Management. And I actually have here later, towards the end of the program and in the chat, I have 4 students, student ambassadors and representatives of Bocconi who will be able to answer many of your questions about the experience as well. So we have a nice mix of people today to share about the program. I am a professor of strategy here at Bocconi. I have taught strategy here for 9 years in our MBA program, our master's program, and our PhD program. I am clearly not Italian. I moved here 9 years ago from North Carolina, where I was at Duke University. And I'm just a massive fan of Bocconi and Milan and Italy. My family and I, we said we would try this for 2 to 3 years. And now we're approaching almost 10 years in Italy. So clearly I've fallen in love with both the university and the program. I did want to tell you also, I have sat where you are today. So 2 years ago, my daughter began university. So we spent several years visiting programs in the United States and Europe. And in fact, 6 months ago, at the last open day for Bocconi, my middle son was here. And today he's sitting in a virtual session for another European university. So I know what it's like to be sitting there trying to think about, can I imagine myself in this location? Is this the right place for me in terms of what I would study, what I'll bring to that? So today we'll try to do a bit of an introduction to that. The Bachelor of International Economics and Management. Now, so as I mentioned, I've sat with my children in situations a lot like you are in, both in presence and virtually. And if you're at all like my kids, you are talented, successful students, interested in engaging with the world, but still maybe not quite sure what you want to do. At 18, it's hard to know, how do I want to apply my talents in the world? And if you're at all like our students, I'll say, you probably want to do well. You want to have access to a good career where you can make a good income, support a family. But also, if you're like our students, you really want to do good. You want to contribute in a positive manner to your country, your society, and to the world. So why might coming to study international economics and management at Bocconi, how might we help you do both those things? So do good in the world while doing well in your career as well. Just think about some of the challenges our world faces today. So we have great challenges with international cooperation and trade. These systems that we built through the 20th century have started to crumble a bit as people question, are they serving what we need today? You can think about the future and the prosperity of Italy, our country, Europe, the region, and the entire world. How are we going to manage the politics and the economies of this just radically different societies and digital societies that we have today? So different even than, say, 20 years ago when I started my career in this. And think about the challenges of the climate crisis. How are we going to reduce the impact of the climate crisis so we reduce our impact on the environment and also adapt to and manage the inevitable transitions as our global climate really is changing? And of course, finally, among the world's great problems, there's the problem of football in Milan. Here we have 2 incredible historic clubs, Milan A and Inter. How have they come to be owned by a Chinese business group and an American investment hedge fund? How did this come to be? What are the business rationale that led to this? And do these owners really have the capabilities to manage and build successful squads? So if we think about these problems, all 3 of them, or all 4 of them, relate to the 3 core pillars of our program. And they're right there in the name of the program: international, economics, and management. So how should we think about those three pillars and really how they relate to these problems that I've just kind of laid out? Well, I'm going to start with management. It's really probably the most distinct part of our program, and it is where I come from as a professor of strategic management. Well, let's just think about this. Let's think about management in a comparative sense. There's a really kind of wonderful research resource now called the World Management Survey, where a number of scholars have been tracking basic management practices at establishments around the world. They literally call hundreds, sometimes even 1,000 businesses in each country and talk to them about their business and measure to what extent do we see evidence of basic management practices. And we can see here in this comparison, when they're rated across all those different management practices we'd like to see, we see Italy not far from the top, but perhaps still a bit in the Serie B, the second level of management in the world. Well, why might that matter? This shows distribution. So this literally is how many firms ranked at different levels, and compared to that bell curve outline we see for American firms from the United States, Italy is gathered up with Southern Europe in that lower right-hand part of the graph. How is it different from the best classes of management around the world? Well, it's very interesting. We have some firms, some companies here in Italy they're among the best in the world, that have wonderful, amazing management. But we have many that fall perhaps somewhat below that. And what is really distinctive, and this is true, I mean, this graph for Southern Europe shows us combined with Spain, with Greece, and it's not quite as dramatically true for Italy, but it is true. Firms that show almost no management capability are still surviving here. Whereas if we look at the countries with the highest management quality, no one exists. If you're down at the lowest ranks, this means you don't really have a goal. You haven't really told anyone what that goal is. You're not really trying to measure it. So those companies aren't surviving in other countries, and yet we see a fair number that continue on here. Now, why might that matter? Well, very interestingly, we can look at how much these reported scores of management quality are actually correlated with the economic success of countries, the GDP per capita, or how wealthy are these countries. And that correlation is quite high. So there is an 81% correlation between the quality of management and the wealth of the country. Now, as hopefully you know, and certainly you will have pounded into your brains if you come here to Bocconi, correlation is not causation. But there's good reason to think, and actually increasingly causal evidence, that management, high quality management practices, can have great benefits to you in your career. Certainly, and this is well established, to companies. Companies that are better managed are much more successful in competitive environments, but also, really, it is a contribution to society. We can now think of management like a quality and rare technology. When we deploy it, we benefit ourselves, the companies where we use it, and the countries where it's deployed. So something of great value and importance. Now, this telecommando is not working. Okay, now I just want to step back for a moment just to comment on what I was doing there, because I think it gives you a good indication of the kind of education you will get here at Bocconi. I stepped back from this topic of management, which is very pragmatic, but also to the rigorous research. What do we know in a statistical sense? Where has the best, most current research been done about the impact of management? And I would say that highlights one of the core values of this institution, and something certainly that drew me, that attracted me to come to Bocconi and join it, is that knowledge that matters. This is an institution committed to generating knowledge and engaging with the most cutting edge of our social science knowledge around the world. If you were here today in person, you would have walked through the piazza in front of our main hall for presentations, the Aula Magna, and in front of it you would have seen this sculpture that embodies this core principle of Bocconi, knowledge that matters. So the institution has a deep commitment to generating kind of social science insights and deploying them in the classroom. Now, we believe, and I think there's good evidence for, this is a key part of the success of the institution. So if we look at Bocconi in rankings of different areas, we are in the social sciences, we are 4th in Europe in general, and quite high in the world overall. We're quite strong, of course, in economics as well. And in management, in particular, we are quite proud. We are ranked in general 3rd in Europe and among the top 10 in the world for management quality. Now, these are rankings that are driven, very heavily by academic production, but also by reputation among employers who hire our graduates. But we believe this has a big impact on, say, more pragmatic rankings, like the Financial Times of London. I guess you do see that, but which, when it ranked overall business schools last year, Bocconi came as the 3rd best business school in Europe. And so this commitment to generating and using the most cutting edge knowledge in the classroom is a really important part of our values and important part of our success. Now, turning to the next pillar, economics. This is, I think you may have heard a bit about Ferdinando Bocconi, the founder of the university in 1902. He actually had a trading business that he then transformed into a very successful retailer. And in fact, his department store is still the very large Rinascente department store right next to the Duomo in the very center of Milan. But as he made this transition, he found he faced very severe challenges in managing his procurement of goods and forecasting how much he would need to buy because of what he would sell the next year. And to solve that problem, he hired trained economists. So right in the late 19th century, he was one of the first to hire trained economists to actually help in his business. And he found it had a transformative effect on his business. It was really his commitment to this idea of scientific training of business managers that inspired him to found this university. And so, in fact, economic training for managers is built right into the DNA of this institution. It goes right back to the founding father, and it has been highly important throughout the history of the organization. And I think because our students get such rigorous and advanced training in economics, in quantitative reasoning, mathematics, and statistics, it's one really of the special sauce or the superpowers of our students, one of the reasons that they are so successful when they go and enter the workplace here in Italy, throughout Europe, and throughout the world. Okay, the last pillar, international. We are quite an international place. You see, I'm American and I'm director of the program. In fact, even the administrative staff person who supports our program is also American. She studied here in Milan and has worked in a startup business here and now works for Bocconi. Our language of instruction is English. All of your classes for this bachelor's will be in English. We have students from around the world. Across the program, we have students from 72 different nationalities, quite an amazing array of people to come in contact with. And of course, also from all 18 regions of Italy, which, as I've learned here, is a country with incredible diversity right inside. And so we have an incredible diversity of people right here. And so when we say we're international, we mean all students here are international. Even if you are from Milan and went to high school here, we consider you to be bringing a very international background. That's a very important ingredient of our program. But you need to come here and then reach across to connect with all these other people to really add to and grow from that experience. Now, the international experiences here in the school, they range from the classroom, of course, where you'll get international perspectives, international knowledge. You'll be in teams for class projects. It will be with people from around the world. You will have the chance to study abroad. About half of our class goes and studies abroad. I'll give you examples or kind of a chart of where they went 2 years ago. That is, those programs, very sadly, of course, are on hold for this year, but we are very hopeful that they will get relaunched in the next year or two as our world returns to normal after this virus crisis. Internships. About half of our class does internships for credit. Many others do internships as well, just not for class credit. And about 50% of those actually do international internships in other countries or with some international content. And then we have university student associations where you may have international activities. You certainly will have lots of contact with other students from around the world. I'll have a word or two more on those to say at the end. All right, let's turn really to the more to the heart of the program. How will Bocconi prepare you then to become a successful manager? Well, if we think about what a manager really needs, an effective manager has to draw on 5 different mindsets. You really need to be quite flexible in the way you approach problems. You need, of course, this analytic mind where you can break problems down into their components, where you can gather data and really try to understand them deeply. You need a reflective mindset where you turn your eye back on yourself and you try to learn and get better, where both in the strengths where you're strong and also kind of build on your weaknesses. You need to be action oriented. You can't just spend forever in analysis. You actually have to try things to solve problems. You need to be collaborative, to work well with other people, or you'll never succeed in business. And you need to be global in your mindset. So how does Bocconi really develop those 5 mindsets? Well, the heart of the program is we try to offer a good introduction to management tools. That means, of course, the economics, quantitative analysis, finance, accounting, as well as introductions to the business functions, the key business functions of marketing, operations, organizations, and strategy. Our content, of course, is tailored to give an international perspective. And we do that in 2 ways. One, through the academic content of the program. And that means in the classroom, we tend to take a comparative approach where you'll learn about the institutions of organizations, of management, and of national economies, how they differ first and foremost across the different countries of Europe, and then across the world more broadly. And of course, as I've already touched on, through experiences where you'll study with this very international class where nearly 50% of students come from outside Italy. Let's delve in more detail. What do we really introduce you to? What will you study across this program? You'll get a lot of economics and financial systems. You'll be introduced to quantitative methods for analysis, meaning both statistics and also some digital tools and programming. You'll get an introduction to legal methods, and then a broad introduction to business functions, marketing, organization, technology, innovation, and accounting. The path over the program develops where in the first year, it is very much about learning the fundamentals, and those classes tend to be the same across many of our programs. So our bachelor's in international economics and finance, and this program in international economics and management. And in fact, our Italian tracks in both management and finance, they have a pretty common core. In fact, we call it the common core in that first year. You'll have compulsory required courses in economics, in mathematics, in management, in statistics, and some other, I'll get into the details more. In your second year, you'll go on to more advanced topics in business. So specialization courses, that means especially finance and accounting, as well as some more advanced economics. And then the final year is where you get to shape your program more. You have a choice between a number of electives in different functional areas of business. This is the year when many or most of our students go and study abroad. And it's also the year that many of our students do practical internships. And there's a final paper. So there's a final paper that you write under the supervision of a professor to kind of culminate your experience by taking some topic you're interested in and then bringing our best understanding of that and writing that up in a longer paper. So specifically, what are the courses in the different years of the program? As I said, the first year is this common core, management, mathematics, economics, and for less credit, but we now give a critical thinking seminar to sort of make sure that everyone has a foundation, especially in social science and reasoning for decision making. Now, I will say we have largely an Italian audience today. This is more the open day that's targeted to Italian students. Our mathematics is quite demanding. Even students who've done quite well in mathematics at the level of high school, some of them find our mathematics track, especially that very first semester, to be very theoretical and very demanding. It takes a lot of work and a lot of preparation. I'm just going to get this word out. We now give a very good introductory course to get people up to speed, even though a couple of weeks right before the semester starts. Do that course if you end up coming here, please. There's evidence it helps students a lot in math. You have economics both semesters. In the second semester, you kind of move on from microeconomics to macroeconomics. The mathematics moves to more applied, more statistics-based, and we add the introduction to the legal system. This is also when you are expected to work on your first foreign language. While at Bocconi, you're expected to acquire 2 languages. If you are mother tongue Italian, that first language is expected to be English, and you must, by the end of Bocconi, test at a C1 level in English. So we'll have classes for that, but we accept other certification. To graduate from Bocconi, you must be at the C1 level. And we recently in the last couple of years, as we realized most managers are managing in digital environments with digital projects, we now actually have an introduction to programming in computer science that first year, where students get not a deep experience, but an introduction to programming with the Python language, because we feel if you're going to be managing in a digital environment, you really need to have at least some basic facility in the sorts of tools that are used to solve these problems. In the second year, you move on to go deeper in many of these topics: economic history, accounting, finance, and more legal systems. The second semester is European economic policy, international macroeconomics, more accounting, and then corporate finance. And you'll have sort of a skills seminar in leadership and managerial skills. And this is when we expect you to acquire your second foreign language. Oh, I should have mentioned, so if you're the first language, if you're mother tongue Italian, it must be English. If you are not mother tongue Italian, not native speaker of Italian, you're expected to pass Italian as your first language at the B2 level. The second foreign language, we expect you to reach the B1 level. This is by the common European certification system. And that generally is expected to be another European language. So Spanish, French, German, most common. Finally, in the third year, this becomes a year of more choice, where you choose between 4 courses from a set of possible electives: organization theory, marketing, public management, technology and innovation, or more accounting. Many students get these while studying abroad at another university. There also is a course on corporate social responsibility, so companies doing good in the world, and business ethics. And the final semester covers business strategy, globalization, comparative law, and more electives. And you're expected sometime in that period or just after to write this final paper with a professor, and that ends up, that's sort of the final experience that has to be completed before you graduate. Now, this final year is more applied. Most students study abroad. This just gives a distribution of where students studied by region in 2018, 2019. You can see a large number went to North America. This sharing, I'm sorry, is blocking. A very large number and growing went to Asia. So we have students in China. We were introducing just this week a double degree program with Peking University. So we have a couple students just starting this year. They'd finished 2 years at Bocconi, and now they're beginning 2 years at Peking University. And they will get a degree from both institutions, quite amazing. But for study abroad, people go to China, Taiwan, Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, and more places in Asia. Other countries in Europe, of course, Vienna, UK, Copenhagen, many other top business schools, Latin America, Oceania, and the Middle East and Africa. One last item on the experiences you'll have here at Bocconi, the active involvement in student clubs or student associations is also a very important part of the experience. If you walk right now outside this building where I'm giving this presentation, there's set up lots of tents of these different associations that you can join when you come to campus or later because of a particular interest. Those can be really they're great experiences for learning about yourself, for interacting with others about things you're passionate about, and that can range from wine to consulting, to technology or entrepreneurship or finance. Some of them are very pre-professional, some of them are very personal as well about human development. I was lucky enough to chair our TEDx presentation a couple years ago, where we moved it to a kind of a big step up where we charged people. We filled our largest hall to have it. We had a professional actor training all of our speakers. And so basically I and a few faculty and some professional staff people worked with the student association, the student leaders. You can see them here in this picture on I hope it's your left, but that's the president of the student association, was a BM student from Greece. He led the student body. The host there, Alessandro, was also a student from Bocconi, and this was we actually had tango dancers in one of the breaks between speakers. Is one of the amusing things. Well, that was incredible. All of us, none of us were professional event planners, but we had to develop skills in that area. And so honestly, faculty and students learned together to do that, and it was quite a remarkable experience. So in general, our student associations offer a lot of great opportunities for more active, more personal learning together with your students, and sometimes together with faculty as well. All right, moving towards wrapping up, just why the Bocconi BM program, Bachelor's of International Economics and Management. Well, I hope I've convinced you, if you come here, you'll have a very international experience with about half international students. You'll have very international faculty. You'll find Americans communicate and teach differently than Italians and Germans and Mexicans and UK. So we have, just in management, we have faculty from all those countries and more. You'll have a rich technology environment. There's certainly the moving online or to hybrid instruction, as we've done during this virus epidemic, has both tested and really expanded our technology infrastructure for supporting learning. You'll have interactive teaching, a group work and projects, and finally this comparative approach to international studies. So all these things really help develop those 5 mindsets I mentioned at the beginning that really all managers need to develop. Now, in particular, with this rigorous training and solid foundation, where does it tend to lead? Well, one of the other great things about management is that business is a very wide range of industries, from creative industries in media or fashion, which are quite large here in Milan, or more kind of rigorous analytic like finance and consulting. We have students go to a whole range of those different paths, as well as entrepreneurial paths as well. But I should just observe, since this is a largely Italian audience, this may not be so surprising to you, but most of the hiring in Italy actually happens after the master's level. So it is true that most of our students, majority of our students, go on for a Master's of Science program, often and usually in management. Many of our best students stay right here and study in the Master's of International Management, which I teach in as well. But many go off to other top universities in Europe, in North America, and across Italy as well. So a large amount of the hiring actually happens after those. But we do have, it's more typical for our students who come from other countries, and some unusual students here in Italy do manage to go on to professional work just after the undergraduate degree. This just gives a small set of examples of both the functional tracks they take. We've had students go on after the bachelor's to marketing careers at Apple, L'Oreal, Pirelli, to accounting and finance at quite a variety of institutions, into human resource management, supply chain and operations management, consulting, and investment banking, which of course are some of the most popular tracks here at among our students at Bocconi. But people, I do want to emphasize, follow a very diverse array of paths and are really scattered in leadership positions throughout Europe and throughout the world in very, very diverse areas. Okay, that wraps up what I wanted to say about the program.